After her older brother leaves the family to go to college, Hazel moves to Philadelphia with her parents. The 10-year-old girl is feeling very lonely because she is now far away from all her friends. So she decides to make friends with some stones and even chooses a name for each of them. During the game, Hazel becomes convinced that Rocktilda is a fairy who can grant wishes and asks her to bring Anthony back home. Just then, the girl hears someone ringing the doorbell and begins to hope that her brother will be around again. However, when she opens the door, Hazel meets Cosmo and Wanda, who introduce themselves as her neighbors. Angela and Marcus then appear to introduce themselves and invite the couple to visit their apartment. While observing her new neighbors, Hazel begins to suspect that there is something wrong with them, and her suspicions are confirmed when she sees Wanda using her magic wand. When asked about her profession, Angela reveals that she is a therapist and writer, while Marcus is a teacher and investigator of supernatural phenomena. According to him, his life's work is to unravel mysteries and prove that all these phenomena can be explained through science. After hearing this, Wanda and Cosmo realize that their secret could be in danger and decide to leave immediately. The next day, on her first day at school, Hazel is introduced to the whole class and soon begins to be regarded by her classmates as the odd one out, because she says she likes collecting stones. During their lunch break, Dev approaches the young woman and reveals that he is the son of a technology tycoon called Dale Dimmadome. After introducing himself, the boy introduces his other classmates, and Hazel realizes that all these young people have some talent that makes them special. Frustrated, the girl returns home at the end of the day and discovers that Anthony won't be able to visit them that weekend, as all flights have been cancelled due to a severe storm. When she receives this news, Hazel gets angry and decides to pack her bags to run away from home. However, as she is leaving the building, she is caught by Cosmo and Wanda, who question where she is going. After trying to make excuses, Hazel finally decides to tell the truth and says she's going to see her brother because she misses him so much. After listening to the girl complain about all the changes that have happened in her life over the last few weeks, the fairies realize that this girl needs their help. At that moment, they were both excited to get back to work as magical godparents, as they couldn't stand their quiet lives any longer. Since Timmy had grown into a grown man, Cosmo and Wanda had retired. However, before they have a chance to reveal their true identities to the girl, Hazel wishes she could fly to the town where Anthony lives, so the magical godparents grant her wish and turn her into a fly. Terrified of her new body, the young woman asks who her neighbors really are and discovers that Cosmo and Wanda are fairies disguised as humans. According to Wanda, the intensity of Hazel's desire activated her magic, and now the little girl has magical godparents. Terrified by this news, the girl decides to run away, and the couple flies through the city after her to prevent Hazel from getting hurt, because now that she has been transformed into a little fly, she is much more vulnerable. When she comes across a plate of French fries on the table of a diner, the girl decides to stop for a snack, and the magical godparents have the brilliant idea of using those fries as bait to get her back home. After capturing her, they take the girl back home, and Wanda distracts Hazel's parents while Cosmo takes her to her room and tries to turn her back. While trying to escape, the young woman ends up falling inside a carnivorous plant and despairs when she sees countless lifeless flies inside. At that moment, she comes across an ant called Tony and helps him get out of there. Cosmo then captures Hazel again and, this time, manages to transform her while Tony returns to his colony. That night, the girl pays a visit to her neighbors to apologize and discovers that their apartment is a portal to fairy world. At that moment, Hazel realizes that Cosmo and Wanda are real fairies and decides to accept them as her magical godparents. A few days later, when she discovers that Wanda and Cosmo are back in action, Jorgen von Strangle, the commander of all the fairies, breaks into Hazel's room and informs her that the girl is destined to become the goddaughter of another godmother. According to him, Cookie is his most efficient fairy and can make wishes come true in the blink of an eye. So if Hazel wants to continue with Cosmo and Wanda as her godparents, the three of them will have to prove that they can work as a team. As a result, the trio will have to go to Fairyland to take the wish tests. If they fail the tests, Cosmo and Wanda will be replaced by Cookie. In the first test, Jorgen removes Cosmo's wings and magic and puts him in a dangerous situation so that Hazel has to make a request to save him. The young woman has just 22 seconds to think about her wish and manages to save it after the third request. However, the commander fails Hazel in this assessment, as she needed 3 wishes to save her godfather. For the next test, Wanda is throwing a party and Hazel needs to get all the guests in the mood to dance. Then the girl wants a robot DJ and the party turns into chaos. To defeat the creature, Jorgen challenges it to a dance and manages to throw it far away. After getting rid of the robot, the commander says that if the trio fail the next challenge, Hazel will get a new godmother. At this point, He asks the girl to choose a means of transportation to get around Fairy World, and Hazel asks for a motorized bicycle. However, Cookie ignores her request and gives her a racing car. At this point, the commander decides to appoint her as Hansel's new fairy godmother and orders Cosmo and Wanda to return to their retirement. However, a few hours later, the girl decides to set a trap for Cookie and starts making a confusing request so that she can't use her magic. Soon after, Jorgen appears and Hazel asks him to bring Cosmo and Wanda back, because Cookie only makes wishes that are different from what she asked for. So the girl wants Cosmo and Wanda to be her godparents again, and the trio reunites. On Monday, when Hazel returns to school, the fairies try to help her make friends with her classmates, but the girl is completely terrified around the other children, so she decides to run away. While running down the corridor, she ends up bumping into Professor Guzman and proves to be a lot of fun around him. When the man walks away, Cosmo and Wanda advise Hazel to show her fun side to the other children, but the young girl is paralyzed when she is in the company of her classmates. So the young girl decides that her best option is to become friends with the teachers, and the magical godparents help her to make them more receptive. However, magic doesn't work with Principal Krentz, so when the woman tries to expel her, Hazel decides to turn the teacher's room into a fun place for children. When the principal returns to her classroom, the girl has fun with her teachers, who end up being late to return to class. On Friday, the students have to take a test, but they can't study the subject because the teachers have been playing with Hazel all week. When the day of the test arrives, the principal takes the girl into the classroom and informs all the students that whoever fails the test will have to repeat the school year. Hearing this, Hazel waits for Mrs. Krentz to leave and runs to the teacher's room to remind them of the exam. However, their teachers are acting like children and don't want to administer the test to their students, so Cosmo explains that he had to lower their maturity to make them compatible friends for Hazel. At that moment, the young woman realizes that she is not as mature as she thought, and that the best option would have been to make an effort to be friends with children her own age. So she wants her teachers to return to normal and makes Professor Guzman approve all the students in the class, since they haven't had time to study the subject of the exam. When lunchtime arrives, Jasmine approaches Hazel in the cafeteria and, from the first conversation, the two become friends. On Saturday, Hazel goes to the museum with her parents and meets James, who offers a dinosaur watching tour for the family. During the Mesozoic era, different types of reptiles walked the earth, both herbivorous and carnivorous. After seeing all the fossils on display in the museum, Hazel begins to feel curious about what those animals looked like when they were alive. So she decides to ask her magical godparents to transport a dinosaur from the Mesozoic era to the city of Dimmodelphia. At that moment, Wanda introduces Hazel to the baryonyx she has affectionately nicknamed Barry. The fairy tells them that she and Cosmo met during the vacations, because they were traveling through time and space. At that moment, Hazel wants Barry to speak English so that they can communicate, and all the people passing by panic at the sight of a dinosaur loose in the park. So the girl asks her magical godparents to make people lose their fear of dinosaurs, and everyone starts acting normal when they see the creature. After that, Hazel turns Barry into a movie star, but the dinosaur isn't scary enough to do the roles he's hired for, so he ends up being fired. The young woman then gets him a job at the museum, but Barry is furious to see how humans have distorted the history of dinosaurs, so he decides to try life as a baseball player. Once again, however, Barry can't adapt to his new job, but when he discovers that the town is without power, he helps fix all the poles and brings the electricity back on. Thanks to the dinosaur, the scheduled parade doesn't have to be postponed, and the mayor presents him with the key to the city. A few days later, Hazel wakes up excited to go to school and informs them that, after class, Jasmine will be coming to her house to watch her favorite horror movie franchise. The films tell the story of a doll who is possessed by the soul of an evil Victorian boy. Before Anthony went to college, Hazel always watched those movies with her brother, and every time they were scared together. However, when she asks Jasmine what she thinks of horror movies, Hazel discovers that her new friend hates them, especially if they involve a possessed doll. So, in order to convince her friend to agree to watch a horror movie marathon, Hazel wants her to be braver and soon realizes that a second copy of Jasmine has been created. Immediately, the girl walks down the corridor in search of her friend's double, and suddenly the girl turns into a giant spider. Then several other creatures appear, and Hazel discovers that all those monsters were taken from Jasmine's subconscious. By removing the young girl's fears, Cosmo and Wanda accidentally bring them to life. In an attempt to get rid of these frightening creatures, Hazel asks the fairies to send them back to Jasmine, but the monsters remain right in front of her. Instead of just disappearing, they claim that the only way to get rid of fear is to face it head-on. After sending a puppet to replace her in the classroom, Hazel sets out on a mission to get rid of her friend's fears, but is easily defeated by them. At this point, Wanda reveals that fears can only be fought by their bearer, so only Jasmine can get rid of them. On the pretext of wanting to help her overcome her fears, Hazel convinces her friend to do some challenges and, during the break, Jasmine manages to overcome her fear of heights, clowns and spiders. While Hazel helps her get rid of all her fears, Jasmine ends up being possessed by her friend's greatest fear, which is letting go of the traditions she built up with her brother and building new habits. At this point, the young woman realizes that she needs to change and decides to give up her attachment to the past in order to invest in new friendships. When Jasmine returns to normal, Hazel says she's given up on horror movie night and wants to do a new activity that both she and her friend enjoy. So the pair decide to go to the playground and hang upside down while planning a slumber party. Suddenly, Win appears in the courtyard on his skateboard and draws sighs from all the girls he meets along the way. At this point, Jasmine tries to convince Hazel to invite the boy to the sleepover, but the young woman doesn't think it's a good idea. However, when Dev reveals that he's also having a sleepover, he calls all his classmates. At this point, Hazel feels challenged and says that her sleepover will take place in a luxury hotel. When they hears this, all the students get excited and, when she gets home, the girl asks her magical godparents to turn the building where she lives into a big hotel. Minutes later, Jasmine and the other guests arrive, including Win. When she sees the skateboarding boy approaching, Hazel asks him what he likes best and enlists the help of Cosmo and Wanda to make his wishes come true. After eating his favorite nuggets, Win is taken for a helicopter ride and Hazel receives numerous journalists interested in recording exclusive images of her hotel. Excited by the possibility of becoming a famous child, Hazel ends up leaving her friends aside to pay attention to the reporters, but soon realizes the mistake she has made and goes after the pair. After apologizing, Hazel manages to convince them to return to the slumber party and asks the magical godparents to return her building to normal while she has fun with Jasmine and Win. The following week, when she arrives at school, Hazel discovers that a vote is taking place, in which the students have to assign a characteristic that best defines their classmates. At this point, she begins to feel insecure, as she is new to the school and believes that people don't know her well enough to attribute a characteristic to her. To rectify the situation, Hazel wants 15 minutes of fame and ends up meeting the timekeeper who offers her 25 hours of fame for the price of 15 minutes. Immediately, the young woman accepts the offer and gets a watch to keep track of the time until her fame comes to an end. As soon as she returns to the classroom, Hazel notices that both her classmates and Professor Guzman start to treat her differently and she finally gets to experience popularity. At playtime, the girl is giving an interview to one of her classmates when Principal Krentz, who has become her official hater, appears. The woman says that if Hazel's presence makes the students late for class when the break is over, she will be transferred to another school. In an attempt to prevent this from happening, the girl returns to the timekeeper's dimension and asks him to stop her 25 hours of fame. To help her, the Guardian calls young Nick and she says that if Hazel acts like a New Yorker, her hours of fame will run out quickly, because in New York time passes much more quickly than anywhere else. With the help of Cosmo and Wanda, Hazel embodies the character and arranges a Broadway show, with her classmates as extras. Then, when the lunch break comes to an end, the young woman manages to use up her 25 hours of fame and all the other students stop treating her as if she were a celebrity. When the day comes to take the photo for the school yearbook, Hazel is extremely excited because this year she will be sending the photo to her brother, since she hasn't seen him for a few months. Suddenly, one of the girls enters the room and informs them that today they will be serving chocolate pudding in the canteen after lunch. When they hear this, all the pupils get very excited, but Jasmine and Win soon begin to lose hope that they will be able to eat the pudding, as Dev always manages to catch them all and only gives them to children who offer him something in return. During Professor Guzman's lesson, the boy pretends to be in pain and asks to be excused to go to the infirmary, but the truth is that his drone has informed him that his plan is ready to be completed. When she realizes that Dev is up to something, Hazel immediately goes after him and discovers that the principal has received a large cash donation to deliver all the puddings to the boy. So, determined to thwart Dev's evil plan, Hazel wants all her classmates to have unlimited supplies of chocolate pudding and the students are overjoyed at the news. Minutes later, when the break is over, Hazel returns to the classroom to take the yearbook photo and discovers that both her classmates and the teachers have forgotten about this appointment, as they are completely obsessed with chocolate pudding. So Hazel decides to interrupt the inexhaustible supply of pudding and all the students start chasing her, as if they were zombies craving more pudding. While fleeing, the girl is rescued by her friends, but the trio end up surrounded. At this point, Hazel takes all the pudding jars Jasmine had saved and decides to use them as bait to lure the zombies away. When she realizes that it's the excess sugar that's causing her classmates' behavior, Hazel wants everyone to have an unlimited supply of broccoli pudding, and the students quickly return to normal. Minutes later, she meets up with her class to take the school yearbook photo and says that it will be the most memorable photo ever, as both Hazel and her friends are smeared with broccoli pudding. The following week, Crazy Hair Day arrives and Hazel asks Cosmo and Wanda to help her do something creative with her hair. What the girl didn't imagine was that her hair would come to life and take on a personality of its own. After performing, Diana claims to be a superstar and Hazel begins to feel uncomfortable when she realizes that she no longer has autonomy over her own hair. On the other hand, Diana doesn't want to be forced to accept accessories she doesn't like either, so she decides to separate from the girl once and for all. After leaving Hazel's head, the wig goes away and the little girl puts on a hat to go out into the streets in search of her hair. After a few minutes looking for Diana, the young woman realizes that she won't find her, so she asks the magical godparents for help in creating a lure to attract her. However, Diana is too clever to fall into such a predictable trap and manages to escape all of Hazel's elaborate attempts to capture her. As it's almost time for the contest to start, the girl decides to put on a wig and go to school. When she gets there, she realizes that Diana has also applied to take part in the competition and takes the opportunity to apologize for the way she treated her. At this point, the hairdresser decides to forgive her and they both join forces again to take part in the crazy hair contest together. After impressing the judges with their dancing, the duo end up being chosen as the winners and Hazel is delighted to take the trophy home. The next prize Hazel wants to win is the school science fair, and to do so she needs to create a totally innovative project. The problem is that the project needs to be presented that afternoon and Hazel doesn't even know what idea she wants to implement. So she decides to attach a light bulb to a potato and use a little magic to make it light up. When she arrives at school, the girl goes down the steps to get to her classroom and realizes that they have been turned into rubber. So Wanda explains that she had to alter the laws of physics a little to make Hazel's project work. When she hears this, the young woman gets worried, but says that as soon as the science fair is over, she'll want everything to go back to normal. When she enters the classroom, Hazel notices that the animals are floating around outside the school, and it doesn't take long before her classmates also begin to suffer the effects of the change in gravity. At that moment, the girl tries to undo her request, but her godparents' magic wands stop working. Suddenly, Jorgen shows up to find out what's going on and reveals that the wands aren't working in fairy world either. So the commander takes Sai, the science fairy, to the human world to try and fix things, but the brain says it will need a huge source of energy to make the wands work again. Immediately, Hazel goes to the courtyard and gathers a huge amount of potatoes to provide enough electricity to turn the wands back on. Luckily, the girl's plan works as expected and she wants the laws of physics to return to normal. As her potato is no longer able to light the lamp, Hazel fails to win the contest and this time Win is the victor. Even so, the girl's parents say they are very proud of her and congratulate her on her participation. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.